Diamond? Would have been nice to know you could do this.
The Homo superiors from the Marvel Universe, or mutants as we call them, gain their strength and abilities because of the activation of something called the X gene. However, several mutants have undergone what is called a secondary mutation. These second mutations leave the mutants with considerably new and sometimes insane powers. However, the effect is such that the mutant's psyche, personality, and often their appearance changes, often for the worse. So in this video, we will explore 15 such secondary mutations. But before that, let's quickly explore what exactly a secondary mutation is. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What is a secondary mutation? Now, I'm sure the name secondary mutation is rather self-explanatory, but it is a bit more complicated than you may think. You see, there are conflicting opinions about what changes may or may not be considered a result of a secondary mutation, so I thought it would be wiser to first establish what this phenomenon really is. Are you on board with me? So yeah, a secondary mutation is basically any change in a mutant that leads to additional powers, as in new ones, a significant increase in powers, or a change in their appearance. Now, the mutation could also cause a combination of these changes. The secondary mutations are not really a secret in the Marvel Universe. In fact, Professor X gave a lecture on the subject at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore in the second issue of Wolverine First Class. Yet, there were not very many credible things that the mutant professor revealed in the lecture. However, in New Mutants Volume 2, Number 12, Beast revealed that a mutant experienced a secondary mutation generally in their 20s, and much like the mutant powers, the secondary mutation manifests during a time of great stress, but it could get triggered by other factors as well. For instance, experimentation, fatal injuries, drug overdose, and sometimes secondary mutations could practically be created. For instance, this happened when Cassandra Nova created Emma Frost's diamond body. So yeah, that's about it. And now let's explore the 15 most terrifying secondary mutations.
Shoot on sight!
Emma Frost. Now, Emma Frost made her first appearance in the Dark Phoenix saga, created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. As a member of the Hellfire Club, she quickly became known as a formidable villain, and one of the most powerful telepaths in the Marvel Universe, who could easily rival Charles Xavier. In the original X-Men the Animated Series, Emma Frost played a crucial role in the Dark Phoenix saga as a member of the Inner Circle, and the show's version of the Hellfire Club. There, she manipulated Jean Grey when she was under the control of the Phoenix Force. Emma returns in X-Men 97, now set in Genosha, a mutant safe haven under Magneto's rule. Besides telepathy, this eclectic social climber, as described by Magneto, has another power, which has often been shown differently in on-screen adaptations compared to the comics. You see, after surviving a Sentinel attack orchestrated by Cassandra Nova, Emma's secondary mutation, that is her organic diamond form, was unlocked by Cassandra, who used her mind-bending skills to do so. So yeah, Emma Frost has a unique secondary mutation that lets her transform her entire body into an organic diamond. Much like Colossus turns into organic steel, she has to transform her whole body at once, and can stay in diamond form indefinitely unless she's knocked out, which automatically reverts her back to normal. While in diamond form, Emma's personality shifts and becomes more cold-hearted and less empathetic. In terms of physical abilities, Emma's strength shoots up to superhuman levels in her diamond form, so much so that she can lift up to 2 tons. Her muscles hardly produce any fatigue toxins, so she can keep going with almost unlimited stamina until she has to change back. Emma Frost's diamond form gives her incredible durability against physical damage. She can withstand severe impacts, including repeated hits with superhuman strength, without getting hurt. She survived young Cyclops' optic blast, Hulk's punches, and even a blast from the Dreaming Celestial. Although the Celestial's attack did break her arm, it shows the upper limits of her durability, especially since a Juggernaut-powered Colossus took a similar hit and was sent flying with severe injuries. Interestingly, she could not revert to her original form unless the broken arm was reattached. Emma's diamond form is so highly resistant to extreme temperatures, able to endure as cold as minus 390 degrees Fahrenheit and as hot as 7,362 degrees Fahrenheit before beginning to melt. Additionally, she doesn't need food or water when she's transformed. However, the secondary mutation also leads to a weakness. You see, in this form, Emma is immune to telepathy from others, but at the same time, she cannot use her telepathic abilities until she reverts to her normal state. Jimmy Hudson. James Hudson Jr., also known as Jimmy, is Wolverine's forgotten son from the Ultimate Universe, introduced in 2010's Ultimate X-Men #1 by Jeff Loeb and Arthur Adams. Raised by Wolverine's buddy James Hudson Sr., Jimmy had no clue about his real dad until after Wolverine's death during the Ultimatum event. Kitty Pryde delivers the news with a hologram of Wolverine, revealing Jimmy's inherited extreme healing factor and his bone claws, just like his dad's. But there's more to Jimmy. He has a secondary mutation that covers his skeleton with an organic metal. Not quite adamantium, but close enough, giving him metal claws similar to his father's. This freaks him out until Kitty mentions that Colossus also had a power to cover himself with organic metal. Jimmy later finds out that this metal can be applied internally in his body. Marvel needed a new Wolverine after the original died, and the X-Men were left in chaos post-Ultimatum. They introduced Jimmy, Wolverine's son, quickly giving him metal claws and a rushed origin story all in one issue, bypassing a more developed storyline. This was part of an effort to refresh the team with younger characters. After the universe-altering Secret Wars, Jimmy moved to the main Marvel Universe. This move mirrored the reason he was created, to replace Wolverine, even though another version, Old Man Logan, was also around. Jimmy joined the X-Men Blue Team, and it was revealed he could extend his strange metal over his teeth too. Initially a quick fix, his powers began developing their unique identity. Since moving to the main 616 universe, Jimmy has been out of sight. If he returns, his powers are likely to evolve into even stranger forms. Beast. Hank McCoy, also known as Beast, left the X-Men to work as a genetic researcher at the Brand Corporation, part of Roxxon Oil. He worked under Dr. Carl Maddox and started dating assistant Linda Donaldson there. At Brand, Hank isolated a hormone that could temporarily trigger mutations, which later inspired the mutant growth hormone. Dr. Maddox, jealous of Hank's success, plotted to steal his research. Hearing Maddox's plan, Hank took his own serum to hide his identity, but transformed dramatically. He grew gray fur all over, his muscles bulked up, his ears pointed, claws emerged, and his teeth sharpened into fangs. The serum also boosted his agility, endurance, speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. After stopping a security guard who tried to steal his research for Dr. Maddox, Hank McCoy realized too late that he had missed the window to take the antidote. As a result, he was stuck permanently in his beastly form. Angry, Hank confronted Dr. Maddox, but stopped just short of killing him. However, Dr. Maddox was ultimately shot by Linda Donaldson, who was secretly working for the Secret Empire. In order to maintain a normal life, McCoy started wearing a synthetic mask, gloves, and a harness to improve his posture. Due to his efforts, no one at the Brand Corporation could figure out that Hank and the Beast were the same person, though security head Robert Buzz Baxter did smell something fishy. In his teenage years, Beast could lift about 1 ton, using his strength and agility for feats like breaking chains and busting through metal walls. After mutating into his blue simian form, his strength skyrocketed, and now he could lift up to 10 tons. This lets him smash through brick walls with one punch, toss cars, and twist iron barbells into knots. His strength reached even greater heights after being enhanced by Infectious Kiss. Gambit. Gambit's main power lets him charge objects with kinetic energy to make them explode, but not everyone knows about his secondary mutation, which is kind of like Spider-Man's Spider Sense. After being temporarily blinded by an exploding card, which to be honest is one of the most embarrassing moments, Gambit gained a form of clairvoyance. As shown in X-Men Volume 2, number 162, he really did get precognition. This let him sense danger before it happens by seeing images in his hands. This ability is crucial for avoiding the constant ambushes the X-Men face. Gambit's core skill is molecular acceleration. He excites the molecules in non-living objects through touch, causing them to explode. This ability typically charges his playing cards and other items for attack. However, in an alternate reality, Gambit's power reached a level where he could manipulate kinetic energy on a molecular scale, essentially making him one of the most powerful beings ever. Anyway, Gambit eventually got his eyesight back, but that did not mean that his clairvoyance left him, because it was more loyal than Rogue. Wolverine. Now, this one is not from the comics, but a video game based on a comic. Marvel's first ever limited series, called Marvel Superheroes Contest of Champions, inspired the game Marvel Contest of Champions. Here, Wolverine kills Cyclops, but the act takes a huge toll on the clawed and gruff mutant. He suffers intense psychological trauma, and as a result, he develops a secondary mutation that grants him Cyclops' powers. Named Cyverine, he was crystallized by the Collector and taken to the Battle Realm for the Contest of Champions. However, he was rejected and stored stored away for not meeting the Collector's standards. Later, MODOK freed Wolverine from his crystal prison, but he was quickly defeated by the Summoner's champions. Wolverine possesses both Wolverine's original abilities, and due to his secondary mutation, Cyclops' powers from the Prime Marvel universe. In the contest, Wolverine is classified as a mutant class champion. Havoc. During the series called Mutant X, a cosmic event linked alternate reality versions of Alex Summers, aka Havoc. That's Cyclops' brother, but I'm sure you know it already. However, this link was actually a secondary mutation, which wasn't clear at first. This new ability came into existence when Alex died on Earth 616, and then woke up in another body. That's how it was revealed that he could transfer his consciousness to other versions of himself. This means Havoc doesn't truly die, he just hops to another version of himself. Besides this, Havoc's primary powers include absorbing energy, even from intense sources like stars, which make him immune to extreme heat and radiation. He can also shoot plasma blasts from his arms, which can be used as weapons or to propel himself like flying. This secondary mutation allows him to not only body hop, but also potentially engage in battles and communicate telepathically through his alternate selves. Pretty cool, eh? Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, also known as Kate, has seen a few possible evolutions in her mutant abilities over the years. However, I must point out here that these abilities and upgrades have never been officially confirmed as secondary mutations in the comics. Kitty was initially known to make herself intangible. However, her powers have significantly enhanced since. She no longer needs to hold her breath while intangible, and she gained a major boost after merging with the Black Vortex, which temporarily made her all-powerful. After relinquishing this power, she discovered a new level of her abilities had been unlocked. Kitty developed an impressive secondary mutation in the X-Men film series, specifically before X-Men Days of Future Past. She could send the consciousness of others back in time, an ability without which Fox would have had a difficult time making X-Men Days of Future Past. This power upgrade allowed her to send Wolverine's consciousness back 50 years, which helped the X-Men evade the Sentinels and avoid catastrophes repeatedly. Sebastian Shaw. If you've followed the X-Men movies, shows, or even the comics, you would know that the Hellfire Club is an elite group for the wealthy. But there's so much more to it than that. Its inner circle is full of ambitious people striving for control over Earth. Sebastian Shaw, often called the Black King, is one of the most influential and prominent members of the evil group. He's worked with big names like Emma Frost, Selene, and Donald Pierce, and has almost always used his influence for various purposes, sometimes even against the X-Men. In fact, he also funded the Sentinel program, being the smart businessman that he is, with the intent of keeping an eye on the Sentinels, but he did not refrain from using the mutant-killing bots to further his own purposes. In the Krakoan era, Shaw took on the role of Black King in the Hellfire Trading Company, and collaborated with Emma Frost and Kate Pryde, the White and Red Queens, to distribute Krakoan flowers and medicines worldwide. However, his relationship with Pryde and Frost remained strained. Shaw was also responsible for Pryde's apparent death on a mission, but thankfully she was later revived. In retaliation, Pryde, along with Lockheed and Frost, attacked Shaw, who eventually recovered. As a mutant, Shaw's pretty powerful. He can absorb energy from any contact, such as physical hits or bullets, and convert it into strength, stamina, durability, healing abilities, and even the capacity to stay awake indefinitely. But what's more interesting is his secondary mutation, which allows him to absorb ambient energy to unleash blasts and waves. Despite these strengths, Shaw's powers have a limit. Excessive energy can overload him. Kid Omega. Quintavis Quentin Quirinus Quire, also known as Kid Omega, is known to be an Omega-level mutant and telepath, one of the top telekinetics, and a top-tier scion. His skills in these areas are nearly unparalleled. Quentin also has ties to the Phoenix Force, having served as its avatar and shown to be its future host in his older form. However, Quire was an evil kid, and he attacked Professor X and called for an open season on mutants, calling for a riot, which a few other students from X Mansion joined. Nevertheless, he was subdued, but in the fight, he was blown through a wall because of a telepathic shockwave. Oh, and the boy had previously OD'd on a drug called Kick. Quentin Quire's body couldn't handle his own psionic energy after overdosing on Kick, which eventually led to a secondary mutation, where his brain turned into a faster-than-light energy. This linked him telepathically to everyone on Earth. When it seemed he was dying, Professor X called Zorn, who exposed Quire to his star-like head, and Zorn seemingly ended Quire's life. However, Quire wasn't truly gone. He existed as energy in a containment unit in Beast's lab. When the Phoenix Force returned, it mistook him for Jean Grey, but quickly moved on. Yet its presence revived Quire, which allowed him to reform his body. He tried to resurrect his love, Sophie, but failed, and instead went after the Phoenix when it resurrected Jean Grey. The Phoenix ended up inhabiting Emma Frost. Quire broke the containment that was holding the Phoenix and Emma. He asked the Phoenix to bring Sophie back. Sophie, however, rejected him and chose death again. That must have hurt more than being nearly dead. Overwhelmed by his actions and the outcome, Quire apologized to the X-Men and reverted to his energy state. In the end, he returned to a beaker in Beast's lab. Iceman. Iceman has the power to control his body temperature, which allows him to drop from the normal 98.6 Fahrenheit to absolute zero almost instantly, which is basically the lowest limit of the thermodynamic temperature scale. He does this by mentally overriding his hypothalamus, the brain's temperature control center, using an unknown internal mechanism that converts thermal energy around him into another quickly dissipated energy. His body tissues are also immune to the effects of extreme cold. Iceman's ability to generate cold is incredibly powerful, so much so that he once stopped a massive fusion device explosion. Bobby Drake eventually left the X-Men, only to rejoin at a later point, after embracing his evolving powers. Following this, he got into a fight with Black Tom Cassidy, where Bobby was injured in the chest, and this is what triggered his secondary mutation. This mutation encased his body in ice and kinda locked him out of his human form. During a rescue mission for Nightcrawler, Iceman was shattered, left with only his head intact, but he managed to reform using moisture from an enemy's body. Unable to shift back to human form, Iceman grew bitter. His control over his powers is extremely precise. He can manipulate molecules to freeze objects or beings instantly, even able to halt chemical reactions, like preventing Sunfire from using his powers. Needless to say, Iceman's new form is not just covered in ice, but made of organic ice, which makes him translucent and nearly indestructible. You could say it's like the organic diamond of Emma Frost, or the organic steel of Colossus. He can rebuild himself from damage, even total incineration.
Sure, and you should have watched your back, Charles Xavier.
Black Tom Cassidy. Black Tom Cassidy and his cousin Sean Cassidy were rivals over Maeve Rourke, who married Sean. After Maeve's death, their rivalry intensified, especially as Tom secretly raised Sean's daughter, Teresa. Tom turned to crime and ended up in prison, where he befriended Juggernaut. The pair frequently clashed with the X-Men, which started at Cassidy Keep, and engaged in numerous criminal plots together. After being shot by Cable, Tom was treated in France, where doctors used a wood-like substance to heal his wounds. This treatment allowed him to channel his bioblast through his fists. However, a genetic virus caused the substance to spread over his entire body, which forced Tom to seek Deadpool's healing factor as a cure. In a confrontation at a school, Tom partially transformed and controlled Emma Frost's body to attack Sean. Emma, in turn, controlled Sean to send a psionic scream her way. Now, this led to her apparent death. Penance then stepped in and defeated Tom. Tom later joined the Brotherhood and was sucked into Shen Zorn's head, ending up in the Mojoverse. There, he and the Brotherhood sold Juggernaut and Nocturne to Mojo before being sent back to Earth.
Oh dear.
Wolfbane. Rain Sinclair, known as Wolfbane, is a Scottish mutant who can transform into a wolf or a werewolf-like hybrid. The poor girl was raised by a strict Presbyterian minister who punished her for her emerging powers. Frustrated, tortured, and saddened, she fled and joined the New Mutants. Her path eventually led her to X-Factor, and then to the British team Excalibur, and eventually she became a teacher at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. So that's quite a trajectory, work-wise. At Xavier's, she led the Paragon Squad. During Hydra's takeover of the United States, mutants were relocated to New Tien. Rain joined a strike team under Emma Frost, who secretly ran New Tien. Here, she was exposed to Mother Vine, which triggered a secondary mutation. This mutation allowed her to extend her claws in wolf form, and split into a pack of 5 smaller wolves. A pretty cool ability, I'd say. Toad. After moving to New Tien, Toad developed a secondary mutation that lets him shoot fire from his tongue. I would definitely be scared of a fire-breathing frog. Although the temperature and properties of the flames are not yet known, Toad was labeled a significant threat by the One, or the Office of National Emergency, with a comparative mutagenic power register score of 4.2, which was higher than Iceman's 3.2. So you see, Toad is not just a humanoid frog, he's much more than that, and he's set to appear in Deadpool and Wolverine. Though Toad has no formal combat training, his natural abilities make him skilled in battle. His superhuman agility and powerful legs allow him to deliver forceful leaping kicks. His extensive encounters as Magneto's servant and as an adversary of the X-Men have honed his combat skills. Toad is also an expert in machinery. He studied technology from various sources including Arcade, Archon, Magneto, and the Stranger. He created a robotic battlesuit that boosts his strength and can shoot lightning, and is equipped with turbo blasters, poison gas projectors, and a self-teleportation device. He's also used a strength-enhancing exoskeleton made of pure energy. Husk. Paige Guthrie, also known as Husk, has one of the more unusual mutant powers. Initially, she could peel off her skin to reveal a new layer made of different materials like rock, diamond, wood, or glass. This ability came with its challenges, as multiple transformations caused her intense pain. In more recent comics, such as Generation X, Paige's situation worsened with severe mood swings and inconsistent morphs, which were later linked to a secondary mutation. The new mutation not only changed her skin, but also her personality with each transformation, and it became so extreme that she was temporarily forced to stop using her powers. Paige also experienced periods of instability, as she showed signs of psychological issues and physical anomalies, which were, of course, related to her mutation. These symptoms, including shedding skin and displaying multiple skin types at once, were connected to her personality changes. Although mere speculation for quite a while, it was confirmed that these drastic shifts were effects of her secondary mutation. Elixir. Elixir is an Omega-level mutant and recognized as an Omega-level healer with top-tier healing abilities. Elixir has the power of biokinesis, which means he can manipulate the biological structure of his and others' bodies right down to the genetic level. He creates biomolecular energy to affect organic matter he touches, enabling him to heal injuries, reactivate mutant abilities, restore brain functions, and even modify his molecular makeup. This intense control makes him hard to treat medically, and he often ends up in a coma from overexertion, during which his DNA may be rebooting itself. Originally, Elixir had to touch individuals to affect them, but his powers have expanded dramatically. He moved from healing minor cuts to healing groups of people, bringing back the dead, and manipulating life forces, all without direct contact. His capabilities continue to grow, and it seems like he's only just beginning to tap into his potential. But what about his secondary mutation? Once, after healing himself using his powers, Elixir's skin turned golden, possibly triggering a second mutation. Normally, his skin stays golden, but it shifts to a deep metallic black when he uses his powers for harm. This change is involuntary, and it's tough for him to switch back from black to golden. However, occasionally his skin does return to its original color. Prodigy theorized that these color shifts also affect his brain chemistry. So yeah, many of the mutant powers that we thought were staples to specific mutants were actually the result of a secondary mutation. Strange, eh? Which one of these did you find the strangest? I think I would go with Toads. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.